Check, check. All right. If any of you peeps are watching, give me a quick sec. Just want to make sure everything's going. And make sure the audio is not going to be echoing. So give me a quick second. All right. All right. Cool. So I just want to make sure this thing's not echoing. And always gotta. What's going on, man? Just making sure some of this stuff isn't echoing. For those of you who are new, this is the Kickstarter for a dual hand disaster tracker, which is the first video game I've ever worked on. And I'm going to work on some of the audio stuff today, show you guys the tools I use and stuff. And as always, you're more than welcome to ask questions in the chat. You can ask questions on whatever platform you're on. I should be able to see them all, whether it's YouTube, Twitch, Kickstarter, or even Mixer, if you're on Mixer. So I just want to do a couple of quick updates here. And of course, please let me know if the audio is not sounding great. I'm using the built-in microphone on the computer just for the sake of not having to tangle myself with a bunch of wires. If you can see back here, there's already a shit ton of wires. So I don't want to complicate this any more than I need to. Anyway, I can go and pause this. That way, can't pull out the chat on its own, so awesome. Thanks, man. Cool. So yeah, I'm gonna play some of the music from the game real quick, but it's a really quick track. It's nothing super fancy. But if you're on the Kickstarter and you click on one of the trailers, it's one of the tracks that I used for it. It's like a 30-second track. It's not even that long. But yeah, just some quick updates. I've got, let's see, 11 days to go. Again, for those of you who are new to this stream, I do recognize some names there that I'm not 100% familiar with, but I appreciate you being in the chat here. Dual Hand Disaster Tracker is a split-screen, single-player, twin-stick risk-em-up. You're controlling two ships at the same time. Your primary goal is to get a high score, but you have to decide when to keep that score. So if you die in the process of getting your score, not only do you lose it, you actually wipe your leaderboard position as well. So it's something to take into account there. I'm set to release the game on PS4, Xbox One, and Steam. And this Kickstarter is essentially, the primary goal of this Kickstarter is to allow me to quit my job for this last 10% of the my day job has nothing to do with video games. It has absolutely nothing to do with video games. So it's not like I'm leaving, like an Activision or anything like that to just work on this game. I basically have a day job that, anyone can have. And it basically just helps me pay the bills and stuff and go out to events and all that kind of stuff. Also with the help of family and friends and stuff like that. So, but anyway, the primary goal of the Kickstarter is to basically quit the job and focus on the game 100% for this final 10%. The thing is, there's a lot of stuff that you have to do at the end of the cycle, the development cycle, which is finalize a lot of stuff. For example, the motto of the studio is make games, I'm sorry, not make games on excuses, is basically gameplay first, ask questions later. And now I'm in the ask questions later phase. So for the most part, the gameplay itself is pretty much done. The gameplay itself is done, but there's still some stuff left to do, like some audio cues and cleaning up some of the design. Like there's still some bugs and stuff, but also that's kind of always stuff you put off to the end. I mean, you fix bugs as you can, obviously, but you clean up as many as you can towards the end. Also, certification is kind of a pain in the ass. Certification has to do with consoles, for example, Xbox One and PS4. You have to basically worry about the process, which is certification. It's a bunch of random stuff. Like Sony and Microsoft will test your game for things like if someone's playing the game and all of a sudden the controller gets disconnected, but someone, instead of plugging in that controller, plugs in like a PlayStation 3, like, you know, joystick for Street Fighter or whatever. You know, stupid shit like that. Or like if someone's loading the game from a disc, you know, if they happen to pull it out before the game's even loaded and stuff like that. It's kind of a pain. It's not so much cost. It doesn't necessarily cost anything. It's more the time it takes for you to go through all that stuff. And right now, what I need is time, not money. But unfortunately, in order to have time, you need to have money. So again, that's exactly what this Kickstarter is for. So yeah, I wanted to focus on some of the music stuff here. But I do have the asking goal, the funding goal is basically $45K. I am currently at 2,700, which of course is obviously low, but there's 58 backers also, so that's kind of one of the things I tend to focus on the most, is just the people who are backing the game. The reason being is, you know, if this Kickstarter fails, I'll just keep my job and just, you know, keep working on it in the same trajectory I've been on right now. I really would like to focus this last part of the game on all of the stuff like leaderboards and making sure all that kind of stuff is cool. Because I do want to get it out by 2017. I don't want to force it out, but I just want to be able to like bring in some people also. Like I've met some people over my years working on this game, and the cool thing is a lot of those people, when I'm out showing the game at these events, have basically helped me kind of figure stuff out, right? So for example, like the leaderboards, there's this guy that I met, completely random, never met him before, even like at previous events, just some random guy who came over to the booth at GDC for the Indie Mega booth. He showed up and we just started talking. He really liked the game. He kept playing it and like nonstop would go to his panels and then come back and keep playing it. And so we started talking about the stuff that's kind of like holding me back for now, or not holding me back, but that I haven't kind of figured out or gotten to yet. One of those things was the leaderboards, and you know, he has offered to help me and take some of his time to basically help me figure out the leaderboards and how they're going to work across platform. And he's had some cross-platform experience, so you know, it's stuff like that where I want to be able to compensate them for their time, because, you know, that their time's valuable, and they wouldn't necessarily be wasting it on someone like me who doesn't know what he's doing, basically, and just kind of going at it. So that's kind of cool. It's just awesome to see people like that who just kind of keep showing up at shows and do stuff like that. So anyway, let's see here. Also, if you guys are at all interested, like if you guys are into like wanting to figure out, wanting to learn how to design video games and stuff, like I went to school to try and learn game design. It was a complete waste of time. So I learned by asking questions. So if there's something you guys are interested in, that's also another aspect of this whole Kickstarter, is to basically, since I can focus on the game 100%, I don't have the day job to worry about, I can do a lot more of these streams where I can break down stuff and show you guys like how I do it, because I've also figured out by watching other people play, by watching other people make their video games and meeting people who've made video games, like you kind of have this this kind of like visual in your head of how people make video games. And even though you know it's hard and stuff like that, like there's still, you kind of see it as this kind of glamorous type thing, where, you know, everything is kind of like fine-tuned and like everyone kind of knows exactly what they're doing. And for the most part, like if you're in, you know, like a AAA studio, that's fine. But for the most part, like indie game developers who are just kind of working like me from their home and stuff like that have like different ways to do things. Like they find workarounds, or they'll figure out a way to, you know, circumvent something, or, you know, overcome something that most people probably have a process of going through. And you start to realize that that kind of stuff is just like totally not what you thought it was. So anyway, kind of like this. So the music to the game, and I will play this track. For the sake of, you know, this stream or whatever, I just have a basic template set up. I'm using Logic Pro X on this old ass iMac. Like, let's see. Yeah, so it's a let me see something. It's running 10.8.5, so that lets you know how old school this iMac is. It's a 20-inch iMac from early 2008, and it's got an Intel Core 2 Duo, not even like an i5 or anything. At 266, which isn't too bad. 4 gigs RAM and an ATI Radeon 2600 with 256 megs of video RAM. So yeah, I'm not even sure if this iMac would run the game. I haven't even really tested it. But yeah, so just to go over the tools that I've been working on, because I've always found that stuff interesting, and if you guys can learn anything from it, that's awesome. So yeah, Logic Pro X running on an iMac, and I'm using this 11 rack here. I know you can't really see it too well from the camera or whatever, but if you guys want, I can also just kind of go through all this stuff with the camera so you get a better view of all the stuff I got, so you can kind of know, you know, what goes into this. But anyway, so I've got this 11 rack. Basically what this does is it emulates like a bunch of different guitars, so a bunch of different guitar amps. So I've got like, I don't even know, I think it's over like 100 amps or something in here, also with like, you know, effects pedals and all sorts of stuff like that. But I honestly don't use much of that stuff. I only use it for the amp modulation. The reason being is I'm obviously in like an apartment, and I can't be too loud. These speakers are pretty ballsy. These are some Behringer Truth 23, actually, yeah, 2031As. So these are powered monitors, flat frequency response, so that you get like the cleanest sound possible, and then you can just adjust all that stuff. But yeah, so it's a lot easier to use something like a modeling thing, like an 11 rack, or even, you know, like a pod. Like I'm sure there's a lot of people out there that use pods for like guitar and bass stuff. And then I have, the reason I'm using such an old school iMac also, that's running 10.58, and I apologize if the fan on the you know, computer is kicked up, but there's nothing I can really do about that. But yeah, so the iMac is so old, and the reason being is I am using this M Audio Project Mix IO, which has multiple inputs in the back, and has these cool like automatic faders. So like they're motorized faders, so they actually move. If I move the ones on the screen, they actually move and everything. And it makes it. I've always liked more of that like physical approach to stuff, right? So I like messing with all these knobs and stuff, and instead of having to mess with it like on the computer with a mouse and everything. But yeah, so this Project Mix IO is what I use for mixing and connecting all that kind of stuff. I also have this M Audio Axiom Air 32 Mini that actually my girlfriend got me for Valentine's Day, I think like 3 or 4 years ago. We'll get into some of that kind of stuff in a bit. And then you can't really see it in the video, but I also have a Korg K61, basically a piece of shit kind of plasticky thing here, so I'm pretty sure you could probably see that. And they're all just running off of USB 2.0, nothing super fancy. But yeah, and then over behind me, I've got my Roland TD6V, which I also got because even though I like programming drums and stuff, like for electronic-y sounding kind of things, I'm a drummer first and foremost. Like, I've always considered myself, I'm a musician, but I always feel hella more comfortable on a drum set than I do on any other instrument. So I prefer, like, when I hear drum beats, usually when I write a song, I tend to work on the drum beat first, and then I'll add everything else to it. Because, I don't know, there's something about, like, rhythm that I really like. And that totally just sets the tone for, like, the rest of the song, right? So, I don't know, I also think that's probably why a lot of the songs I write tend to be a little more aggressive. Where I've been in a ton of bands, and I've had friends that have played music that are, they start with guitar first, or like piano or something, so like they write differently. And as much as I admire that and respect that, like I've always wanted to do that, but I just don't write music that way. Like, I'll sit there and I'll play the guitar, and yeah, I'll come up with some cool riffs or whatever, but I can't think in the sense of atmospheric and moody. I always think more like aggressive and like chunky. And so that's kind of one of the things I've liked about playing with bands, is they, you know, everyone kind of brings their own thing, and then you just kind of build off of that. It's not necessarily a pro or a con, it's just, you know, it's just different. Like, everyone just writes music differently. So, let's see here. So hopefully this comes across on the stream. I kind of tested it beforehand, so we'll see. I'm also going to put the volume up a little higher than I normally would for like when I'm on the drum set. Because the speakers here are actually not as loud as they might be coming across on the stream. So yeah, this is a track. It's called Charismatic Status Apparatus. It's the track on the trailer for the game that's on YouTube right now. It's the latest trailer. Obviously, I'm going to work on something for the launch and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, this is essentially the track. I basically just have 1, 2, 3, 4. I've got 5 tracks right now, and I'm really only using 2. So I've got a drum set, and I also use Superior Drummer for the drums. But let's see. I use Superior Drummer for the drums, which is an awesome just software package that sounds so much like a real drum set. It even lets you track each individual microphone that the developers of that software used when they were tracking the system. So it's super intense. It's really, really awesome. However, you know, when you're working on this kind of stuff, there's always something that gets jacked up. And for the sake of the stream, I didn't want to bother with, you know, kind of messing with all that stuff. So I'm just using the built-in drum sets that are in Logic Pro X, which actually are really, really cool. And I always add all this, like, processing to it and stuff anyway. So I add, like, compression, you know, gate, like, reverb and stuff like that. So they sound super fucking rad. So let's see. Let's start this up. Cool. So yeah, that is the track on that latest trailer, and today I'm just gonna kind of gonna go through some stuff here. It's not gonna be anything super cool, but you know, at least it shows you guys how like real the process is of having to work on stuff. It's tedious and like super monotonous and repetitive and all sorts of shit, but just kind of gives you an idea of how that stuff is, and how I was mentioning how it can be kind of, you know, sort of mundane, but you still love doing it. So for most people who are just kind of sitting there thinking games are made from magic, which sometimes they are. But anyway, let's see. Hey, Cal, will you get me some water? So just for the hell of it, I'm going to copy some of these and just duplicate this. Actually, I can probably just delete this. Thanks. Huh? All right. Alright, so, just for the hell of it, there also might be like some audio latency and stuff like that. Again, that's also, you know, why the it has to do with some of the computer here, but at the same time, some of the cables and stuff, so... Yeah, you can kind of, I'll see how that works. Like, you can, so the way I normally do this kind of stuff is I'll just kind of focus on, like, I don't know, a beat, right? So let's try, and then what I'll do is I'll just kind of loop that beat if I find something kind of cool, and then I just kind of flow with that. So, also, let me make sure. So yeah, that time signature is a little faster than I really wanted it to be. And let's try and get a slower time signature here, or tempo. Let's try 45. can hear that kind of like clickiness there towards the end. More than likely that's some of that, the cables kind of cutting out and stuff, and that's always a pain in the ass. But let's see. So yeah, see, that last part there is where it starts to clip out a little. So what I can just do is cut that down to maybe like 4 bars here. Yeah, just like that. Let's see what that sounds like. And then I can move it down to the very beginning. I know you guys can't really see that necessarily, but... Cool. So that's like a solid little 4-bar signature, right? So then what I could do here is now, let's see, let's loop this. Oh, yeah. Sorry. So now, I got that beat, right? Alright, so just for the hell of it, that's a cool beat. Now let's go back, let's choose... Alright, again, I'm just randomly choosing some instruments here, but this is actually kind of a cool... Let's see what we could pull out with that, right? So you just keep looping it over and over again and try and come up with something rad. Let's try some of this dub crush bass. Let's give like a more of a bass sound first. Actually, let's see. All right, let's see. Yeah, I don't know. That sounds pretty rad. I always kind of mess around with stuff at first. Oh, one of these keys is all fucked. I mess around with stuff for a while, and then I'll just kind of like start building off of that. I can also even throw in some guitar. But when it comes to this style of stuff, I don't know. Let me see. I'm gonna throw down that little bass line there, and see what it sounds like together. And see, like, when you start to throw in the guitar, it's different because that's all kind of synthesized ass stuff. And the way I play guitar is more like, I don't know. It's more like, I don't want to say melodic. I just can't find another word for it. But yeah, it's more. Let's see. Let's just see what the fuck I could pull off. I don't know. Totally going off the top of my head. So let's see what that sounds like. Play that back. Let's go ahead and like repeat that whole bass line, right? So that'll just kind of keep going in the background. Let's see. Oh, this fucking mouse sucks. So I can copy that and just kind of throw that here. 1, 2, 3, 4. Well. Oh, that works. Alright, so let's start this. My fault. Alright, let me zoom in here. And let's try. Let's see how much more we could drag this out. So also, just based on what I've learned from going to like GDC and stuff, and meeting some friends who are also musicians, but now they're doing like music for like some badass fucking games, right? Like Star Mazer and stuff like that. Like a lot of that, those like a lot of indie games for the most part tend to have music like that. That's more like digitized and stuff like that. So I'm kind of just jumping into it from a different perspective. Like the music I tend to write is more like rock oriented. Like the drums will have like a rock kind of sound, but the underlying like this kind of shit, like the synthesized stuff, is not stuff I've really done when it comes to actually writing some music. I actually kind of lost what I was trying to get to there, but I'm going to fix this. Oh, yeah, so actually that's what I was going to say. Is I've learned from some of those developers and some sound designers that not to write music so much with a melodic thing. And I always thought that was weird because, you listen to like the Super Mario song or whatever, and that's awesome because it has that melody that sticks in your head all the time. But the thing is, what you have to remember is back in the day when people were writing songs for games like Super Mario Brothers and stuff like that, that was like, they were super limited in what they had to work with, right? So they had like this 16-bit, or hell, like the NES was like an 8-bit machine. So you had a certain amount of space you could use to fit in melodies and sounds and stuff. That's why if you kind of go back and play some of those old school games, you'll start to realize that a lot of those games don't have like drum tracks and stuff like that. They're just like, 4 or 5 different melodies, or like, rhythms and stuff that are kind of like playing throughout the whole game and stuff. So yeah, you'll have drum beats and stuff, but you're not going to have like a track necessarily that's just a drum track. You'll have like maybe like a rhythm, like the the drums or whatever, and then maybe like 2 more instruments, for lack of a better word. And they were super minimal in what they could do in terms of melodies and stuff, and that's why something like Super Mario Brothers just sticks in your head, because it's like very, very simple. But yeah, it's fucking rad. So anyway, that was kind of my point with this. Is I'm gonna go ahead and, so you don't want to give too much of a melody, so that if you cut the track off in the middle or something, it doesn't leave you, like, you could get into like augmented and diminished chords and all that kind of stuff, but yeah, fuck that. So you basically don't want to leave people hanging, right? So you don't want to create like a melody that would leave someone wanting more. I mean, shit, maybe you could. That could be part of the design. You're doing it to just create this like tension and stuff, like you would in horror movies, where they just play these random fucking chords, and for the most part, those chords are like augmented, diminished chords that aren't just like normal, like C major or C minor or whatever. It's like C minor 5th key 5 or whatever the fuck. Yeah, I don't even understand that bullshit either. But that's kind of the idea, right? Is you'll play these chords that just people will kind of freak out at, because they leave you wanting the I can't find the word, but the closure to the track. And if I'm not mistaken, the one thing I learned from going to like college for being a music major was the idea of like how augmented and diminished chords can be used to create that kind of stuff, and that was awesome. But yeah, like I never write music in that way. I never write it in terms of like, oh yeah, hey, let's write this song in these types of chords. It's just like, fuck, dude, that's a badass beat. Let's go with that. That's always how I've been. So that's kind of why school for me, in terms of how that goes, was a complete waste of time. So let me go here. So yeah, let's actually go back here, and I'm going to repeat this again. Oh, there's the loop button. I was trying to find that. Okay, so start this back up, right? let's see how that flows. See, and the cool thing is, a lot of this stuff is like, I could go on with this stuff for hours, man. This stuff's fucking rad. So I've got some delay on that, but this is like it's a plugin called Fog Machine. This one's Game Over. I don't know what the hell this is. Alright, that's dumb as hell. Gated Morph Synth. Let's see what this is. Level up. Yeah, a lot of that stuff is also just like arpeggiated stuff, so it's stuff. Ow, fuck! I got something on my eye. It is just stuff that just trails on its own. So I'm just hitting one note. Like, I don't know. Like, I mean, that sounds cool and everything, but I don't know. I'm not cool with that. Let's go back up here. Let's see what I could add, like, in terms of guitar, and see if that sounds good at all. Yeah, just so you guys can see, I haven't changed the strings on this because I haven't really worked on it. So if you hit the drums, that sounds like shit. If I were to play the drums, if I were to play the keys and stuff with the drums, it'd sound really weird. But anyway, so yeah, this is my SG. I honestly don't even remember what model it is outside of it has two P90s in it. These things are awesome. Let's see. So normally when I play this stuff, I'll kind of mess around with a bunch of the different amps and stuff also. For the most part, I kind of try to keep to what I play like in bands and stuff, which is my JCM 900. Or 800 now, actually. So I try to emulate or model that same amp on the 11 rack here. But right now, just because I like the way it sounds, like nice and thick and heavy, and I don't have to mess with other pedals, is I honestly don't know what this M2 lead rhythm is, but there's a couple of different amps in here that sound really fucking cool. Let's go down to the audio track. So yeah, I deleted the wrong track there, but so you'll see you'll get the idea of like how I'm talking about, where the guitar might not always be the best way to throw something into the track. I'll make that velocity shifter track because that's kind of pointless here. But let's see. I know I'm wrong notes and everything, but it's also just the idea of like there's like, I guess maybe having to find like when I write stuff on the guitar, it's a lot different. Like I tend to write stuff like, let me see if I did something more like, so just for the hell of it, like I'll try and do this real quick to show you the difference in the style of writing a track like that. So I'll record this real quick guitar riff. Let's see what the rhythm is here. I'm gonna mute that. this out here. Yeah. Again. All right, here we go. So just for the hell of it, let's go back here and plug this. And let's go back to this. All right, real quick. Let's try this out. Drive sticks. Sorry, some of that lag is throwing me off. Let's try it again. Also, I can drop that guitar a little bit. Let's try. Is killing me. Let's try again. So let's see what that sounds like, right? of lag with the drum set there and stuff, but you get the idea. You can obviously tell that having to do all the synthesized stuff, like the drums and the synthesizer and stuff like that, is a lot easier to do. You start throwing stuff like this in here, and it just kind of muddies up everything. But yeah, I guess I'll just go ahead and close out on this last thing here. Go back to this and see what it sounds like one more time. Oh, yeah, so I switched those drums out. Bring this back down. And this actually sounded kind of cool. I dug this. Something to work on, you know? All fucked up too, but I mean that's basically the whole thing. I'll just go through my pedals here real quick and show you guys, kind of like move the camera here so you guys can see. Make sure. Yeah, just want to make sure I can follow what the camera's doing, so I'm not throwing stuff off here. But yeah, so. Yeah, I got the K61 here, and this place is a mess. I need to clean it, so don't mind the trash. That's the Axiom Air 32 Mini. You can use that with an iPad also, so that's kind of rad. Then you have the Project Mix. You can see up top it actually labels the tracks and everything, which is pretty cool. So it's awesome to have this. You can mute the tracks through hardware here. The thing is, it just doesn't support the latest operating system, so that's kind of a pain in the ass. Yeah, just makes it kind of difficult. But it still runs. Obviously, Logic Pro X. And let's see, the 11 rack, obviously, also. And these are my pedals. So this is the pedal board. Over the years, I've gone through a shit ton of stuff. But this is what I've settled on so far. I've got two DL4s, actually. And then that Diamond tremolo. It's actually the best tremolo I've ever owned. And then I got a Bad Horsey 2 wah pedal, a decimator for noise gate. It's a rad fucking noise pedal. Noise reduction pedal. And then the Polytune is actually, I changed to the Polytune from the usual like Boss kind of tuner pedals. The Polytune is actually really rad. You could leave it on and bypass the signal and you could just strum the guitar and it can tell you which string is actually out of tune. So that's really fucking cool. And then I got my whammy. And my distortion pedal is this Bogner Ecstasy. It's the red pedal, which is pretty fucking cool. So that's awesome. There's a couple of different Bogner pedals that are distortion pedals like this. But this is probably the best one I've had so far. It pairs really nicely with the JCM 800, like super nice. So I've fallen in love with that distortion pedal. That's how I get that kind of like metal distortion. And then I also have, they're all on this pedal train, I want to say Pro. This is I want to say it's the biggest pedal board next to, there might be one above this which is hella bigger, but it also comes with like a metal case or something, which is pretty fucking cool. And then you can barely see it in there if I pull out a little. Let me see, I can probably pull in. Yeah, you can't really tell. I have a fuel tank underneath this, and that's what's actually powering all of my pedals outside of the DL4s. The DL4s need to be powered through Line 6's power supplies, and the Whammy DT also. The Whammy DT is like a variant of the Whammy, the actual Whammy pedal. The Whammy D-Tune is basically has like the D-Tune. It's two pedals in one, so it's the Whammy pedal with the down tune version. So over here on the side, you can actually kind of do a drop tune and actually tune down 2 whole steps, which is awesome. And it does it without any glitchiness, so it's super awesome. But yeah, that's pretty much it. I thought I saw Audrey around here somewhere. She might have gone over there. Yeah. But yeah, that's pretty much it, guys. Thanks for stopping by, and obviously, if you guys have any questions, feel free to email me directly through the page, through askanonymystudios.com/contact. And yeah, thanks. So the next event I'll be at is Evo, and I mean not Evo, I'm sorry, Sam Arcade in Washington D.C. at the Smithsonian this weekend. So I'll try to stream from the show floor. Thanks again for backing the game so far, and you guys haven't given up, so I haven't either, which is awesome. And I will see you guys soon. Peace.